we first found her, when she first moved to the communal den site, she kept sitting in the entrance to the dens and blocking the way for the cubs to come out. So she became Corky. Well, they're sort of named after their personalities to an extent, or at least the more recent ones who've entered into our character scene. Now, the reason that I'm supportive of naming them, and I find it particularly difficult, I've never named hyena cubs, and I've worked in research before. I've never named hyena cubs until they reach about a year old. But for our purposes, when we spend hours sitting at these dens, first of all, we start to get to know their personalities, but also it becomes incredibly confusing to talk about that cub that was born last year, November, and that cub that was born in December, and the cub before that was born in June. And remember that cub we saw once upon a time. It gets very, very confusing. So the names have started and now stuck, just as a way of helping us keep track of the different personalities. And it would be a lot more difficult to say, well, let's say we numbered them. So we would have C1 and C2 and C3 for the cubs, and F1 for Pretty and F2 for Corky. It doesn't have quite the same level of a good way of remembering it. Our little cub enjoys climbing trees a great deal, apparently. And Alice, you were wondering whether I think that November might be related to James, who is one of our presenters, for anyone joining us for the first time. Alice, obviously Alice is making that connection because James also loves to climb trees. I'm sure how James would feel about that. He, I suppose, a well-deserved reputation for both of them. Maybe James has got some distant spotted hyenas somewhere in his background. Maybe the family secret, but I think James is fairly one of a kind. There's certainly a cheekiness to both of them. We've mentioned before with Pretty, the mother of Nola, the tree-climbing James relative, we mentioned that we think that she might be a first-time mother. I'm going to roll forward ever so slightly since most of the action has moved to that part of the den. It's a tricky den site, this one. It comes with holes everywhere. I always prefer to give them plenty of space. But yes, we suspect it might be her first litter. Of course, we don't know that for certain. She just looks fairly young in comparison to Corky, for example. And Kathy, who's watching in Tennessee, you would like to know... Sorry, she was calling. Murphy's Law, she immediately stopped. The entertaining thing, sorry Kathy, I'll get to you in a moment. The entertaining thing about spotted hyenas is that I see them call down the den, or I see particularly Corky. She'll have both cubs out next to her and she'll start calling down into the den, or they'll be out on the other side of the den. And she'll be calling into the den like she's forgotten where exactly they sit, where exactly they are. So, Kathy, you want to know when hyenas first reproduce. And it's usually at around 2 for the females, possibly slightly older. And it's very common for first-time mothers to actually lose at least one of their cubs, if not 2, which means that we don't always know when there's a possibility that they've lost a cub before. What I want to do is just check when the first recorded breeding male was, because the males are slightly different. Oh, excuse me. That took me seriously by surprise. So the males spend quite a bit of time once they've left their den sites and once they've left their clans, being accepted into another clan, or if they decide to remain nomadic, actually trying to seduce the females. I'm just trying to double check the age for you, Kathy. I'll have a look for you when I'm not live, Kathy, just so I can keep an eye on what's happening at the den. I would say that the males will be ready to breed at around 2 years old as well. The question is whether or not they actually have the opportunity to. It's a similar situation with wild dogs. With wild dogs, sometimes it takes them a while, although they are sexually mature at about 1.5 to 2 years old. Unless they have that opportunity to breed, it doesn't happen. Going backwards again. Let's follow the cubs. And they certainly keep their mothers busy at this age. What we'll see as both November and D1 and D2 start to get older, we'll see less and less of Pretty and Corky spending as much time around the den site as they do. It's interesting. Behind that tree, that was Pretty, I think, with one of Corky's cubs, and she was actually showing, it looked like she was showing submission to that little cub. I'm not sure whether I'm offering that as an explanation because that's just what I expect to see, or if that's what actually happened. It's difficult because it was behind the tree trunk. There she goes again. Some really interesting interaction. So that's not this cub's mother for new viewers, but this cub is very curious about her. And we suspect that Pretty is actually quite low ranking, which is why I think she's letting that tiny cub come up to her and greet her in an adult way and sniff around her genitals. Woodpecker. And we think that she might be naturally quite submissive and quite low down in the clan's hierarchy. And that means that for Corky's cub, the smallest cub, having inherited mom status, it's actually higher ranking than this female, in theory. With cubs, it's a little bit more complicated because they don't necessarily straight away know their place in the hierarchy, and they sometimes push the boundaries, and of course they get to play with each other regardless of whatever rank the individual holds. There she goes again. Amazing to watch them interacting with cubs and how gentle they can be. Those incredible bone-crushing predator jaws are wielded around the cubs' heads and necks with absolute gentle precision. Just an interesting aside about what's happening with this clan. Yesterday we heard zebras alarm calling around quarantine. Now, zebra alarm call for not much, actually. They'll alarm call for lions. Even leopards, they're unlikely to be too stressed about. And we suspect, because afterwards I drove up onto quarantine on my way home, and it was filled with hyena. And we suspect that this clan is now targeting zebra foals and hunting zebra foals. And it remains to be seen if we are correct about that. But let's wait and see. I think that is the case. I think they are hunting at the moment. There's been little opportunity for scavenging within the clan's territorial boundaries, unless the lions move further west into Buffelshoek. It's because the lion prides have been spending time quite far away from the centre of Djuma and have been on the surrounding properties, which means they haven't had much in the way of opportunity for scavenging those kills. Interestingly, just watching the behavior also with one of these twins, I can't tell if it's D1 or D2 just yet, but it's definitely bolder than the other. And I don't know whether that means necessarily that it's a female, but there is one that we see outside of the den far more frequently and playing with November more frequently. I'm going to keep watching. I'll let you know which one it is. Might be that we've got a male-female dynamic. November baiting mom there. And Zoe, you're wondering how often a female can have a litter of cubs. The answer is about once a year, roughly. The average is probably a little bit longer than 12 months. It's probably somewhere about a year and a half. And the reason behind that is spotted hyenas have quite an extended lactation period. Oh. So they definitely, they have that extended lactation period, and they spend far more time with the parental care that they utilize. I'm going to reposition, and in the meantime, Steph has got a beautiful view of this rising sun.
Look at that sky. I know you've been treated to the little hyenas that are playing around the den, but we just needed to share the sunrise with you. We've just seen the sun poking its head out there in the center of your screen, and that line of fluffy clouds that you can see has just grown bigger as moisture from the Indian Ocean is hitting the Lubombo mountain range and is pushing up. It's creating these fluffy clouds over the low veld, and you've got that impossibly yellow sky coming through with those streaks of cloud, those silvery clouds that you can see. That anvil-shaped cumulonimbus cloud that we were having a look at a little bit earlier is still there in almost exactly the same place, which makes me think that it's growing over the ocean, over the Indian Ocean. Hasn't drifted not even a centimeter, which is quite bizarre. Generally speaking, these storm clouds do move. There's the sun. Good morning. The life giver of this planet and the closest star to where we are. Huge burning ball of, generally speaking, hydrogen and helium gas with a bunch of heavy elements in its core, burning at about 5,000 degrees centigrade on its surface and 50 million degrees centigrade in the core of itself. For those of you with stopwatches, push start now. Take a screenshot of where the sun is right now, and 8 minutes from now, take another screenshot. We will stay here for 8 minutes. I think it's worth looking at it. Now, why I'm telling you to do that is the fact that the light from the sun takes 8 minutes to reach us. 8 light minutes is how far we are from the sun, and light travels at, I'm not even, off the top of my head, I actually can't remember what the speed of light is. I remember what the speed of sound is, but not the speed of light. I just know that it's very fast. And you'll see that where the sun actually is in 8 minutes' time compared to where we saw it poke its head out from behind that cloud is vastly different. It just gives you an appreciation for how big space is. Talking about space, we have got the most unbelievable cloud patterns above us. It's a whole bunch of different layers of clouds. We've got soft, fluffy clouds by the sun. We've got an enormous cumulonimbus cloud off to the left-hand side of your screen. We've got these scudding low-level clouds, the grey ones, the dark grey ones, and then right above us, right high in the atmosphere, coming out of the top of your screen now, we've got these silvery, wispy, almost tortoiseshell clouds that you can see there against the blue sky. And just have a look at that. That in its own is just one of the most spectacular sights. And so often we don't take time to appreciate how gorgeous a display a sunrise can be. Myself and Tebs have been debating on how far those clouds actually are. For those of you maths boffins out there, perhaps you could help jog my mathematical mind. At sea level, humans can see 25 kilometers before the curvature of the earth causes us to start looking into the sky. I'm almost of the opinion that those clouds are humping over the Lebombo mountain range, which is from here 80 kilometers away, probably around about 65, 70 miles, and that the huge cumulonimbus cloud that was off to the left-hand side of the sun is over the Mozambique Channel, which will be about 200 kilometers away. That cloud is around about 12 to 15,000 feet into the sky, and I'm sure I seem to remember being able to figure out distance at some point in my academic career. I'm sure we'll be able to give those estimates of distance a nod of approval or not. Now we're about 4 minutes in, and you can see that the sun is... In 4 minutes' time, we'll show you where the sun is. In the meantime, we're going to send you back through to Jamie.
Timed that perfectly because a newcomer just arrived. A very large newcomer with a very round belly. And I have no idea who this is. I'm trying to figure it out. She's gone straight to the entrance of the den. Just trying to figure this one out. I thought maybe it might have been June's mother, so the big female with the scar across her back. But I can't see any scar, or any big scar. Corky's at the back with her cubs. Oh no, it's not Corky at the back. That's what's going on. That must have been Corky that arrived. What is it? It's a bit tricky. I can't actually tell. And I definitely can't move. This is a big girl, whoever she is. Look at the submission the cubs are showing. And she's greeted all of them. November having a good sniff. And falling over himself, November that is, to show submission. There's a hint of fear in their approaches to this big female. Please send through screenshots if we manage to get some nice ones of this particular female. I want to just try and work out who she is. I have to confess, I can't identify all of the hyenas on the spec without closer examination, unless they have something clear like the scar around Corky's head, for example, and her ripped ear. But that's been some very interesting interaction. while we try to figure out what's happening here, let's pop over to Steph, and he's got some more of that beautiful sunrise to show you.
Have a look at that sun. Now, as we're watching the sun get higher and higher in the sky, we're noticing that the clouds above us are actually burning off. We've still got the clouds on the horizon. We've still got them humping over the Lobombo mountain range. There's still that anvil-shaped, flat-topped cumulonimbus cloud off to the left-hand side of the sun. But for those of you who did take a screenshot of the sky, we're about 8 minutes away from where we said that. Have a look at that sun. That was where, when we first saw the sun, when it was just peeking above the clouds, that is actually the position of where the sun was. To give you an idea of relative distance. It's always been a fascinating topic for me, and something that I keep on doing every opportunity that I can. I don't quite know why I do it, to be quite honest. I'm trying to work through the feeling that I have now to try and explain it to you. But I think it's just my fascination with space and with the broader picture and the place that we live in. And on a day like today, it just brings it all into focus. Now, there are some clouds off to the right-hand side. They just seem to be scudding off into areas where we aren't at the moment. We've got this like hole of blue sky around us. Behind us, it's fairly open. In front of us, where you're looking at the moment, you've got these wispy clouds going off into a darker patch of clouds there. You can see it just entering your screen from the right-hand side now. And that is almost like a pervading sort of layer. And when we get over the hill, we'll start the calm. We'll get over the hill and we'll see what it's looking like on that side. It's almost time for us to move on. There's been an emergence of termites while we've been sitting here. They sort of arrived at dawn, flew around a little bit, created quite a stir with the birds around us, and then have moved off again. I don't see any more termites coming out. The ground is still very damp after yesterday afternoon's thunder shower. I think the clouds that were prevalent yesterday afternoon stopped the sun from drying it out and gave the water the whole evening to soak into the ground, which is probably fantastic for the grass. I'm looking forward to see the grass flush out green. And on that note, I think it would be a good time for us to get going and for you to go back to Jamie and your hyena.
Just move back a fraction to try and see what's happening up at that entrance tunnel to the den. That big female that came in, she's still there. She's the one on the right that's hidden through the tree there. And I'm just trying to work out what role she plays in all of this. I've not seen June's mother, the big hyena with the scar, the huge scar on her back, for a really long time. And that's fairly normal because the cub June that I'm referring to is close to 8 months old now. So is relatively, I wouldn't say self-sufficient, but definitely doesn't need her mother around as often as Corky and Pretty need to be around their small cubs. So the suckling intervals are much, much longer and much more infrequent. I wonder that this individual definitely carries a high rank. Look at that strut. Accompanied by Mischief personified, going off with her. Interesting. No, I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. Now, we've heard considerable vocalization from this hyena clan. And obviously they've got their wonderful whooping call, they've got their contact calls. And the only other species of hyena that we have out here is a brown hyena. although the chances of seeing them are fairly slim. They are incredibly shy and apparently have only been seen on the live safaris once. But Marianne, you were wondering if there's a different tone or if there's a difference in the tones of the calls. Thank you, that was well timed. That's the female that we were watching earlier. Okay. You can see the reaction of the cubs to that. That's June calling. A very high-pitched whooping call. Nope, no reaction anymore from Corky and the twins. So Marianne, brown hyena and spotted hyena sound completely different. Brown hyenas don't do that whooping call, that whooping contact call. They have a very, very strange call. It sounds almost like people chattering or having a party far away. That sort of indistinct muttering sound. Hello. You're running on your way to approach whoever was calling and investigate. Sure. Den chaos. And they don't have the same variety of calls. They don't giggle around kills or chatter the same way that spotted hyena do when they get excited. They actually sound very, very different. And what I've noticed is they're almost completely silent in areas where there's high spotted hyena concentration. So the chances of us hearing a brown hyena out here is fairly slim. It's unlikely. They tend to stay very silent. Also the fact, of course, that we don't find that many of them in this particular part of the Sabi Sands. The habitat is not ideally suited for them. But yes, Marianne, totally different call. One I've been fortunate enough to hear only because I've been in a reserve where brown hyena it was a closed system, and they were the apex predator. There were no spotted hyenas and no lions. There were leopards, but obviously hyenas fall higher up the food chain than leopards do. And so the brown hyena in those areas were far more vocal. We had a lovely time at the den. I'm going to head on my way, and in the meantime, Steph has a bird to show you.
All right, we've got a group or a flock of there's a magpie shrike for you, but coming down to the ground now is a bird I've been wanting to show you since yesterday. It's a wattled starling flock, and there you have some of the ladies with a male in the background. You can see with a bright yellow head and his wattle underneath his chin. Our starlings are a most amazing group of birds. Their coloring is just fantastic, and they're busy picking off insects on the ground here. Quite difficult to see there, but there you can see that male wattled starling coming out there. Of course, he's going to run across the open, and we're going to see if we can just move forward a little bit to see if we can get him in one of these gaps for you. Let's see if we can do that. Turn around quickly. The wattles only really come out this time of the year. You only really see them there. You go. Tevs is on it. All of the birds that we can see there are the wattled starlings. It's a flock numbering about 8 or 10 individuals, and this male looks like he's got himself a nice harem of females. There you go. Look at that. Those wattles will greatly diminish outside of the breeding season, And you don't actually see the wattled starlings at all in wintertime over here. You only see the males. They've got the most unbelievably high-pitched call as well. It's something completely atypical. I actually didn't even know the call that they made until just a few days ago, where a call alerted me to... a call I didn't know alerted me to have a look at the top of the tree, and here was a male busy singing away for some females. He only had 1 or 2 females. They don't breed here. That is what my book is saying at the moment. They are generally nomadic. Wow. There you go. So they don't breed here. They're generally nomadic, and they are gregarious, which means that they like to hang around with each other in large flocks. And occur widely over southern Africa. One of the more spectacularly colored birds that we find out here in the Lowveld, and something that I quite enjoy looking at. Always busy doing something are birds. Very few birds just sit and do nothing, which makes them quite exciting to have a look at. Alrighty, let's carry on. Carry on driving into these clouds. One that I also enjoy having a look at. Eric, you asking this question all the way from Virginia Beach, and good morning to you. You've asked, what sign do we look for when animals or animals are trying to tell you something about weather change? Now, it's quite interesting you say that, because quite often in the flood, when it was about to flood in the year 2000, when I was involved in part of the floods that inundated this area, the hippopotamus and the crocodiles moved out of the river systems into dams and pans. And you also found weavers' nests building their weavers building their nests very high up in trees above dams and pans. That was one sign that I found quite interesting. Now that I'm part of a very big drought, and I'm busy observing with a critical eye what the bush is trying to tell us, I've noticed that the cuckoos are not prevalent anymore. We don't see any cuckoos, and that the weavers have stopped building their nests. So they're not building their nests at all. So that gives you an idea between the two. Normal height during normal years, higher in the trees during wet years, non-existent during dry years. That's something telling us about it. And then there's obviously, on a more, that's now from a season to season occurrence. On a daily occurrence, I have noticed that the Burchell's cuckoo and the Jacobin cuckoo quite often call as the pressure is dropping, and they call to predict rain. And I'd say with probably a 60 to 70% accuracy, 60 to 70% is the accuracy that I can get with the Burchell's cuckoo. I'm almost sure this is one of the cinnamon birds that we are trying to find. Yes, cinnamon-breasted bunting. A female cinnamon-breasted bunting. Yesterday, myself and Brian tried as hard as we could to try and get one for you. It was near impossible. And there we have it. And I'm sure it was an 8-year-old viewer that was with James the other day. I battled to remember her name right now. But was trying so hard with James to get one. And I hope that she's watching at the moment. And Gracie, who's 8 years old, called them the cinnamon bun birds, and was dying to see one the other day. And now we've got one. Gracie, I hope you're watching right now. I hope one of your friends can take a screenshot for you. But that was the cinnamon-breasted bunting. And I know it's a bunting because of that zebra-striped head that it had, and that's what caught my eye. Good. Onward, so they say. final control that lots of you have been sending in your pictures from the sunrise this morning, and I just want to say thank you on behalf of everyone else who didn't manage to see those pictures. So thank you very much for sending in those screenshots. It's always nice to have screenshots shared around for those who join WildEarth intermittently through the show due to whatever other responsibilities you have, and also for those who can't join us today. Cry in the background, that mournful whistle, was the black-crowned chagra. Oh, have a look at what we're seeing now as we crest the hill. So whereas above us was open sky, and I was worried that the clouds were starting to burn off, as I crested the hill and my vista further south opens, I can see that we are treated to a bank of clouds, which is awesome, because that's exactly what I'm wanting to see. Now those banks of clouds, let's see if we can get you a nice view over there. Those banks of clouds are pressing up against the escarpment, the Drakensberg, which is the other side of the Lowveld. We've got two buttresses, the Lebombos on the east and the Drakensberg on the west. And so what's happened is moisture-rich air from the Mozambique Channel is being forced over the Lebombos finally, and is bumping up against the Drakensberg and creating this band of clouds, and I'm hoping that that carries on, because that gives us some nice rain. I'm saying the R word again, slowly but surely jinxing today. This is not what I... But that was nice to see. Very nice. Nice surprise to see. I was expecting it to burn off, as it so often does. So what I've been doing and here we've got a question coming in from Madden, who's 9, and Quinn, who's only 7 years old. How do you become a game ranger is what they're wanting to know. It's relatively easy, to be quite honest with you. You go to a game ranging school, you can do that. There's a few academies around the country. Or you join one of the safari companies that offer a in-house training program. And then you go through the training, and then they basically decide whether or not people want to employ you. But it really is only a little bit of what you know, and generally mostly about the type of person you are. You've got to really want to be around people and to entertain people.
Something major's happening with these hyena here. They're having a bit of a skirmish, which is why we rushed across here. This might be difficult for some of you to watch, so sensitive viewers, I think, possibly turn away. This one hyena's being quite seriously attacked by the other two. Definitely for sensitive viewers. I don't think you should watch this. Something's happened here within the clan. Now, I'm not sure exactly what's gone on here. This one individual's become the target for the clan's ire. There's a couple of sub-adults around. And again, very similar to what you saw with Scott. They targeted the ears of this hyena. And contact calls happening. This hyena is desperate to try and get away from them, but really struggling. I can't tell if it's a male or a female. This is the dark side of hyena nature. And we've got to be careful that we don't impact in any way on this interaction. I'll turn the vehicle on, obviously. Moments like this are incredibly difficult to witness, and I don't have an explanation at the moment as to why they targeted this individual. It might have been Alright, it's trying to climb under our vehicle for safety. I'm going to move forward, and the reason I'm doing that is because I don't want... It's difficult. It's trying to seek refuge underneath our back tire. And it's learnt that this is the way forward. And it's that big finger. That's targeting it. We have to move forward for the vehicle's safety as well as Brian's. I don't want any hyena jaws reaching up by mistake. As difficult as this is, and as much as we'd like to be a refuge for this hyena, trying to pass the rest of the clan. It's not that I don't want to act as a refuge for this hyena, but it's a very difficult position to be in. I think this individual could well be an interloper in this situation. And I moved the car because I could actually feel them rocking it as they hit it. And those whooping calls, I think, have almost served to pacify. Guys, I'm going to turn around quickly. Very difficult situation to watch and observe. But a part of hyena nature that we don't get to see all that often. That is the main aggressor, the hyena on the left. And they've by starting our vehicle, we may have broken the tension that was happening there. But hyenas, you can see how the sub-adults, which is also interesting, the sub-adults are always, from that sighting we had with Scott as well, they are involved in these skirmishes. Shame, little one. Let's have a look at you. I'm going to show you the injured hyena. We'll be okay. pack group moving off. Shame. What happened? You did something to upset them. I don't know what it was. This hyena's going to be fine. For those of you who are concerned about it, it's an old individual, looking at the state of its teeth and its ears. You can see how things have started to relax a little bit. The rest of the clan is still dotted about in front of us. There's one to the front left. There's one off to the right as well, coming through, all carrying and sporting a couple of injuries. And the sub-adults are making their way back towards this individual. The adult aggressors, from what I can see, have actually moved off slightly. That was incredibly intense to witness. Nature at its absolutely most savage. She's got a considerable limp, and I think it is a female from what I can tell of the size. It might be a large male. It's really hard to tell. Her foot's injured. Jenny, with all of those hyenas surrounding us, were we in danger? No, I don't think so at any point. I tried to move the car because I was most concerned about the impact that we were having on the outcome of it. That hyena had sought refuge beneath us, but it actually, in a turn, trapped itself underneath. Is this hyena going to start another one? No. You can see how fearful the injured and attacked hyena is. Jenny, I don't think we were in any danger. Now, don't come back under the car. Come on. Don't do that. Right, you can see there how nervous it is. But at the same time, when animals are in that sort of frame of mind and state of mind where fear and aggression are dominant, it was not a risk I was willing to take. In case that one of the hyenas tried to jump out of the way, I don't think they would ever intentionally attack us. It's almost definitely a female. She's got nipples. You can see the limp. Her back left leg is quite seriously sore, but I don't think broken. And the only reason I moved is because I felt I had to. I felt like we'd trapped that hyena as well, or it had trapped itself. Paul, I don't know. Well, first of all, I think that it knows instinctively that running away now could trigger a chase response from the rest of these hyena. With the injuries that it has, starting to run now, and it could run, even though that left leg is seriously injured, it could still run. I've seen hyenas hop through on 3 legs, no problem. I think it's afraid to run. And we don't know exactly what happened here. All that attracted us was the noise of the goings-on. I don't know why or what happened. I don't know if it's part of this clan or not, or if it was an intruder. I don't think so, though. There's a level of familiarity between them. That's sub-adult ignored. I think that was probably one of the most intense sightings I've had at WildEarth. James Richard, you were wondering if the hyenas clans will ever try to force out the very old, just because this hyena looks so old. Look, it's going straight back towards the den site, or at least towards the center of the clan's territory. This is not a foreign hyena. This is part of the clan. James, not as far as I know. I don't think they force out their old. I have seen ancient hyena living around den sites and at the clan, even though they're no longer breeding. I don't know. I can only offer you guesses as to what's happened here. Hyenas are predators. That is what they are. That is in their nature. And they're very intelligent creatures with a complex social system. I'm not following the injured hyena. I don't want to cause any disruption to it, and I want it to be able to have its senses on full alert. That is definitely one of the aggressors walking behind there. Stocky, big female. And the least injured of the group in terms of the adults. My guess, if I had to guess, and it is a guess, my guess would be an internal clan conflict, a subordinate stepping out of line. We've spoken before about the possibilities of coups within the hyena social structure itself. And something may have happened with that subordinate female that irritated the larger, higher-ranking females. And once they started to attack, it became a savage equivalent to a hunt, because the minute she started to squeal in pain, it triggers that hunting instinct within them, would be my guess. I would say almost certainly an internal conflict very similar to the one that you witnessed with Scott, that we also suspected was a clan member. Janet, we're watching all of these hyenas slowly make their way back down along Mvubu Road. And Janet wanted to know how close we are. Janet, we are probably less than 300 meters away from the den. The den site sits halfway along Mvubu Road, if you're familiar with our geography. And we're currently sitting at Buffelshoek Cut Line, which is very close to the border from what we can tell of this clan's territory. Wow. That was the last of them. Very intense and very difficult to witness. And also a very difficult position to be in when a hyena seeks refuge beneath the back wheel of your car, beneath the back wheel of your vehicle. Very tricky situation to know how to handle. But I think you'll all agree with me that trying to minimize the impact as well as to try not to trap the hyena itself by the presence of our vehicle was the correct decision. Safari Dean, I agree. I mean, the sub-adults, Safari Dean says that he finds it interesting how they get the sub-adults to keep watch. I agree with you completely. It is fascinating. I don't know how much of it is keeping watch and how much of it is curiosity. Those sub-adults have a natural curiosity. They seem to have been involved in all of these skirmishes that all two of these skirmishes that we've witnessed. Now, obviously, I'm not following this hyena group into this thick drainage line. First of all, because of the impact on the environment, but also because of the impact that we're going to have on the way that they're interacting. That was phenomenally intense. The presence of the sub-adults, my guess would be curiosity. They get themselves involved. How they fit into the ranking system is a mystery to me. There's the rest of them. Stop here. Give them plenty of space. I can see that injured hyena. They're all now interacting peacefully, wallowing in the water, in the mud puddles to cool down after all the action. The injured hyena is at the back there. And Paul, I guess we have our answer as to why she didn't run away. She or he, but I'm fairly certain it's a she. She's part of the clan. And whatever scary stuff lies within the clan dynamics itself, the biggest world outside of it is, I guess, even scarier for her. me, I have no idea as to whether or not it could be a former matriarch. She's big, she's old, it could be, or she could be an older subordinate that has spent her life aging within the clan as a constant low-ranking female, constantly bullied. The fight didn't start at the den. The fight started almost essentially where we picked up on them. And I haven't seen sorry, excuse me. I haven't seen her at the den site, at least this morning. She might be a female. Screenshots, please, now quickly, of her left side. Please send them through to me for those of you who were watching, obviously with disclaimers for sensitive viewers who might be disturbed by what they might see. And doing what is now very common behavior for spotted hyenas, which is to wallow in mud, and they very frequently do it when they're injured. And she's lying now with this sub-adult who's perfectly peaceful with her. I wish I could offer you a more complete explanation as to what happened this morning. I don't know. My guess is internal clan discipline. I don't know what she did to provoke it, and I'm not sure how the sub-adult, please screenshot this as well. Let's try and figure this out. And that sniffing around those injuries was gentle. No teeth involved. And now walking away. And Natalie, the hierarchy is definitely important to them, and discipline, order, and structure has been crucial to their evolutionary survival, and therefore is fiercely enforced. And for us, it is difficult to witness. We don't understand what's going on. We merely feel an human and emotional reaction to it. But it could be that what played out today was crucial in the future survival of the clan. I don't know. I can't really offer any explanation. It's a darker aspect to hyena behavior, but I'm strongly of the opinion that you cannot claim to love animals like these that are wild and behave the way they have for hundreds of years without accepting and acknowledging that they are just that. They are wild animals. They're not people. They have their own reasons and structures for doing things. You have to love both sides, even if you don't enjoy it. And Brian, I think that must have been one of your most intense sightings.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. The sounds that were coming from behind us were absolutely intense, and you feel, from a human perspective, you feel absolutely heartbroken for the targeted hyena. And you feel a sort of massive sense of confusion. I really, really hope my mom wasn't watching, because she phoned me after the last hyena moment that was with Scott. I hope she wasn't witnessing that. And for me, having witnessed lots of tragedies in the bush, that was still, I think, one of my most intense sightings ever. To witness something like that is incredibly, incredibly difficult to see. We only have our emotional human responses to it, and our instinctive response is to feel incredibly sorry for the targeted hyena, the hyena that is clearly on the back foot, quite literally in this case, particularly when they try and seek refuge from whatever quarter they can, which in this case, she was intelligent enough to know that we were here and we were solid, and that it would be a place that she could come and try and seek refuge from underneath our vehicle, which is incredible to me, that they understand that and they know that. She came to us to try and protect her. And unfortunately for us, that's an incredibly difficult position for us to be in, because we can't actually protect her. We can't interfere in this in any way. It's a natural it's a natural progression of the way that these hyenas are interacting. And to sit and watch her now is almost equally heartbreaking. She's just watching the rest of the clan move off. And maybe it's because they have such expressive faces. Maybe it's because we have spent so much time with them that it feels so sad and so human to watch her. Ginny, I have thought about it. I think I will go back to the den site, depending on what's happening. The only thing I want to do is I will have to go around. Obviously, with her lying in the road like that, I don't want to come and disturb her. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time with her and then loop around back to the den. I don't want to push her in any... Oh, she's actually going to try and follow, I think. Shame. Oh, poor girl. Let me duck down so you can see. No, she's going to come back here. Oh, I'm sorry, girl. I don't know what you did or what happened there. Yes, Jared, we've seen it now twice, and we've seen it in their play as well. Those playful moments with the cubs are also learning experiences. And Jared's right, hyenas go straight for the ears and for the legs. I've spoken about it when they're playing before. And it's the most sensitive and vulnerable patches on the hyena. And actually what they're going for when they go for the back legs is the genitals in these serious attacks. And the legs just happen to be in the way, which is why it's always the back legs that are damaged in the way that they are. And she's going to limp off to lick her wounds. Followed by that sub-adult that was lying in the mud with her. I don't know. I don't understand what's happening here. I don't know if she's the sub-adult's mother. As she limps off, you can see that little sub-adult's going to pop into view soon. Screenshots, please, if you are watching. Screenshot the sub-adult as well. Let's try and figure this out. Left side is fine. Unbelievable. Is the sub-adult following out of curiosity? Similar to what we saw with Scott, to see what happens next? Or is it following out of a deeper sense of family connection? Your guess is almost as good as mine in this particular respect. I honestly am not sure as to what that dynamic is. We'll have to go back and we'll have to check spot patterns and try and figure this out. There's another little sub-adult wandering through as well. I feel like I know that hyena. I feel as though I've seen her before. And I'll have to go back and double check and go through some of the records and see if we can figure out who she is. And then I'll update you on the sunset safari when I've had a chance to do that. Another sub-adult wandering through, but more, I think, just wandering. Maybe going to explore the other scene of the fight. Eileen, who's watching in Texas. Apparently when James first found the den site, there was a female hanging out around the hole, and James speculated that she might have very young cubs. Apparently she kept calling around the entrance to the den. I'll double check. I'll go through and I will have a look and try and figure it out. I think there's a possibility apparently she hadn't been seen since Corky moved her young cubs into that den site. There's a distinct possibility it is her, but why? What happened? I would love to know. But it's going to probably forever be one of those mysteries that we can only speculate about. We spend so much time with these complex creatures. And this is why, moments like this is why it is so, not just because the cubs are cute, This is why it's so worthwhile, those hours and hours we have spent at the den getting to know the clan, and for you guys to get to know the clan. It's actually essential for moments like these, because we can start to understand a little bit better what's happening. I'm going to make my way back towards the den. It was incredible. Heartbreaking and incredibly painful way. Still something intense to witness. And I think even more so for Brian, who was sitting on the back with the hyenas underneath him. Rocking the car. Sure. That was a new one for me.
Yeah, me too.
Wow. And as much as we see out here, and I mean, between Brian and myself, Brian spent a phenomenal amount of time out on the back of the vehicle with the camera, as well as the work that he's done for WildEarth and other areas. And I've spent hours and hours and days and months in the bush before. And you never ever become inured to the feelings that a sighting like that provokes. Particularly with all of those vocalizations, hyenas are such incredibly vocal creatures. I'll do some research this afternoon in between drives, and I'll try and figure out exactly what's going on. And while I make my way back towards the den, which as many of our regular viewers know is a bit of a windy, circuitous route, let's pop over to Steph and see what he has to say.
Not to steal you away from the hyena for too long, but myself and Tebs just came onto this amazingly green open area after only 12 hours ago having received the first rain of the season. This was sand, literally, yesterday morning, and now we've got green, and on the green was those crowned lapwing that you opened with. And this is a pair of crowned lapwing that do live on this open area. They're insectivores. Big black and white cap. Camouflage bird once it sits down and hides its belly and its legs. It needs to be, because they incubate their eggs on the ground. And they have these brown mottled eggs that they put in a scrape. They don't build a nest, they just scrape some sand together. And you will have noticed the other presenters, James, Brent, and Scott, coming to this open area. These are quite successful parents. Quite often it takes us a few days or weeks to find their nest, but we eventually do. Always brush over the fact that these birds are so fantastically colored. That black and white crown on top of their head is there for a reason. And I'm of the opinion that it's there for other lapwing flying around. So it's as a warning that, listen, this is my patch, this is where I am, and you can see me from the top. Now, just before we send you back through to Jamie, I want to show you 255. This book that I have over here is plate 255, or am I being very dumb? Plate 53 in actual fact. I want to see if it's the meaning of its name has anything to do with that head of hair that it has, that black and white coloration. It is called the crowned lapwing, its common name. I'll be with you in a couple of seconds. White crowned, blacksmith. coronatus is its specific name. So Vanellus coronatus, which means to have a crown, and that is obviously typical of this particular bird. Not that exciting, other than you have this big black and white. Alrighty, you going back to Jamie?
We're back with these two hyenas. I was on my way to the den when they dashed past us. Popped out exactly where I expected to, at the water. Tails up, full of aggression. Their body language just says aggression. You can see it in them. They've come to sniff around where that hyena was. Let's see if they go right or left. She went right. Okay, they're going straight up the road. Let's try and stay with them. Again, these are the two main aggressors from earlier, as far as I can tell. That one walking behind with its tail in the air when I first mentioned it. She was the female that came in and everybody was subservient to. As soon as she walked into that den site, everybody, the cubs, everything was on high alert. And I wonder that she's not the matriarch. I'm hazarding possibilities out to us. I don't know what's going on. Just the attitude that all of the hyenas adopted around her. Luckily, she's not going in the direction of the injured hyena, which I'm actually quite glad about. She's come back to the scene of the fight. What is going on? Look at them sniffing like that. Stop here. Now, apparently there's a hyena sniffing at the Juma Dam. These guys have returned to the scene of that fight, and in fact right to where they cornered that hyena underneath our tire. Look at that. Is that Corky? Can't be. Looks like her though. No, it's not. Sorry. It's not her. Another one of the sub-adults has just arrived. Quite possibly that sub-adult that followed the injured hyena. That individual on the left with its tail in the air, she is the one I'm talking about with those dense spot patterns. She's a dark hyena in color. And she is the main aggressor. She started, well, I think she started all of this. You can see it in her attitude. They've returned where they cornered that hyena in the drainage line as well, sniffing all around. Why, I wonder? What purpose does that serve? What is she trying to establish? And that tail up, curled over her back like that, is a very clear sign of hyena excitement or aggression. And it's also something you see when they go on the hunt. Let's screenshot her as well, please. Take as many screenshots as you can and send them through to me, because there is something fascinating happening in this clan. Thank you, everybody, to those of you sending them through. I can tell I'm going to be sitting for hours looking at spot patterns today. Whoopsie. Thought I wasn't in low range, my bad, sorry. Trying to give them as much space as I can as we watch what they're doing, just so that we don't impact on whatever's playing out here. I don't know. This is Buffelshoek, by the way. We're right on the boundary. And keep an eye on the dam camera today and see if that injured hyena wanders through. She went off in the opposite direction, though. I think she's going to go into Buffelshoek. Luckily, they seem to be tracking northwest. She went northeast. But I don't know. It's almost like they're looking for her. Why, though? Surely it's done. Maybe not. This is probably a very common scene, what is happening here. It's probably something that's been maybe not witnessed as often as we think, but it's something that has happened regularly. Diana, I agree. Actually, Brian and I just had that conversation where I said I don't think they were going to kill her. And Diana said they could easily have caused more damage. Who are you two? It is Corky. It's definitely Corky. And that confirms that Corky is a very high-ranking individual, which is what we've always suspected. And you, little one? You're just along for the ride, I think. Wow. It's starting to unravel slowly but surely. I think that's June that walked past us there. We always suspected that June was, if not the daughter of the matriarch or the son of the matriarch, definitely a high-ranking hyena. Back to where they cornered that hyena under our tire. Exactly. Came and had a sniff. Wow. Intensely interesting. And I wonder about that stocky individual and who she is. Because she is clearly, and even Corky was submissive to her. And when she first arrived at the den site, and this is why our observation at the den sites is so crucial. At the den site, Corky's twins came straight out to greet her in a very submissive fashion. And she was very gentle with them. She was sniffing them and licking them. Is she a grandmother? Or is she Corky's older daughter? She looks younger than Corky to me, but she's huge. She's bulky. They're definitely, Corky and that female are in it together, very much so, which suggests to me that they're related to each other. So we've spoken before about how hyenas have different matrilineal lines. So they might have a couple of females, mother's daughter's sister, and then they might have some unrelated females, part of that clan, also with their mother's daughter's sisters. Think of it like different shapes all under one heading. They're all part of the same clan, but unrelated families. There's no other social structure in terms of predators like it. Sorry, little one. I'm stopping here because I'm making that sub-adult feel uncomfortable. I can see it in its body language. So I'm just going to let it get further ahead of us. As soon as an animal walking away from you stops and keeps looking back over its shoulder, you know that you've upset it. Not necessarily upset it in a major way, but still enough that I prefer not to drive on top of them, behind them. They're going to follow her. They are. They're going to smell out where she went. I think they're going to follow her. But why? If it was discipline, surely the discipline is done. Because there's some instinct telling them to persist. Look at this. Following her exact path from where we last saw her. Look at that. Now you understand the power of a hyena nose. They'd left by the time she walked up here. But they figured out that's where she went. Okay, maybe they're not going to follow her. Going back towards the water. Maybe it's satisfied themselves that she's not coming back to the den. Maybe that's what they were trying to establish. Maybe they're trying to protect the den for some reason. Why? If she is the one that was seen by James, that he suspected she had young cubs, does she still have young cubs? Was she trying to get access to them? Or did the arrival of Corky result in those cubs' deaths? It's all speculation. I've got no idea. That interaction. Those two are joined at the hip, practically, while June has a quick drink in the mud puddle and quite possibly a sniff as to where that other hyena was lying. But those two are in this together, whatever this is. Okay, I didn't see Pretty. I didn't see Pretty involved in this. I think she stayed at the den. I just wish I knew what this was. But no, Pretty was not involved, as far as I could tell. Were they protecting the den? The fact that Corky was involved in this is something that's making me view it in a whole different light. Corky's high ranking, so is this stocky individual. You can see she's full of attitude. I even said it when she arrived at the den. I said, look at the way she struts. Was this female in some way, even accidentally, a threat to their den site? Just don't know. They're making their way back towards the den. If my guess is correct, they'll cut right once they've sniffed around here a bit more and go back along the path. There's a clear game path that runs along the side of this drainage line and pops out right at this waterhole corner, or where this dip is in the road. They should, if my guess is correct and they're going back to the den, they should cut right soonish. Everything that they're going to do, but we can hazard guesses. Oh, okay, back to the road. Alrighty then. Dean, in terms of asking about this behavior, you're wondering if they're checking to make sure that the injured hyena didn't scent mark. Possibly. I think it goes deeper than that. I think they were making sure that that injured hyena was not coming back in this direction. And you saw that the way she followed them for a while before changing her mind and moving off away from the den site. They're either checking that she's not still around. That's what makes me think they're trying to protect the den in some way. They came to sniff around where she was, made sure, followed her trail for a little bit before reassuring themselves that she had left and moving off. Which makes me think that this has something to do with the safety of their cubs or internal clan discipline. She's almost definitely, in my mind, a member of this clan. She's not an interloper. It would be so unlikely that a lone female would come wandering into the heartland of another clan's territory. totally unlikely. I'm sure that when we look back in our records, we're going to find that she comes from this clan. They're moving off to the right, along the off-road track straight towards the den. And having participated in that rather savage attack, Corky's going to go straight back and check on her babies. There must be something to do with this den safety. Jenny agreed, completely agreed. It's the thing that I love about these live safaris, one of the things I love, is the fact that this is happening with all of us watching together. We're sharing this experience, and you are learning as much as I am about the animal's behavior as we go along. And the fact that it's happening right here as we speak adds a whole different dynamic to it. It's like watching a sports game live versus the recorded version. It's just different. And I certainly never expected this morning to go in this direction. They're moving straight towards the den. We'll catch up with them there. And it's hard sometimes. It's difficult to watch the interplay between the animals play out in that kind of way and go in that direction. We love them when they're cute, when the cubs are climbing trees and calling. This is a whole other aspect to them that we have to learn about. You'll notice I always approach this den site in low range. The same thing I did when we were in the middle of that hyena conflict, was to shift the vehicle into low range. It lowers the revs of the car, particularly when driving off-road, and just means that you lower the disturbance as well. Straight back to the den. On cue. Here because I'm blocking. If I carry on forward, I will block June's path. Oh, no, I'm just going to go that way. That's not what I expected to happen. They're walking straight past the den. Big stocky female has stopped. Screenshots, please. If we haven't got a nice one of her right side. Hello, little cub. Walking straight past the car. She's covered in injuries around her front part of her body. That's because she was attacking. She was the primary attacker in that scenario. So those injuries were inflicted by the attacked hyena. Look at the power in her. She's huge. She might not be taller than Corky, but she's bulkier. And I also suspect, mind you, that she's younger, just by the amount of fur that she has around her. Whoever she may be, I think she's a strong candidate for the matriarch, either now or in the future. The fact that we haven't seen June's mother with the scar on her back also makes me question considerably what's happening within this clan dynamic. And I'm not talking a long period of absence, I just mean the last few days that I haven't seen June's mother. Valerie, you've sort of corrected yourself there, and you've said it may be a bit too anthropomorphic. And have I ever seen behavior within animals that mimics jealousy? And I actually don't think you're being too anthropomorphic. Yes, to an extent. They're not going to get jealous over an animal. Oh, I don't know. Hold on, Valerie. Let me think this answer through. Because, yes, I have seen animals exhibit jealousy. And the example I'm going to use is mainly in primates, where one is getting attention from a high-ranking individual. She's going to lie down at the den. This is fascinating. That's not Corky. Corky's moved off. And unfortunately, I can't follow Corky because it's this dense vegetation. But they've probably gone to Gallagher Waterhole, or possibly to the Juma Pan. This one's lying down. Valerie, yes, I've seen within primates is a good example, although maybe we're sort of moving towards the more anthropomorphic animals anyway. But where one high-ranking individual is paying more attention to the other, then another one tries to push its way in. And I've seen it with hyena cubs. In fact, we've all seen it with hyena cubs, where one is getting attention from an individual and the other one barges in to try and get involved. And that's not necessarily jealousy as we understand it, but it's certainly along a similar theme, along a similar line. And we saw it, I don't know if we could put it like this, but when female leopards are mating with a male and they follow, although I think that's more territorial, they follow the male into another female's territory. For example, what happened with Kwetile and Karula a couple of months ago, 3 months ago. She's gone to sleep at the den. She is not one of the mothers of the young cubs, but that doesn't mean she's not one of the mothers of the sub-adults. She is young, though. No sign of Pretty, and no sign of the cubs. She's gone to sleep right at the entrance to that den. I think we're going to have to do a bit more thinking. I'm going to speak to Steph as well, see what he thinks about this whole scenario. There was a lot of speculation around what was going on when Scott witnessed the attack a couple of weeks ago. Let me move forward so that we've got one last view of her. Going to help us at all, actually. But I'll stop here for a moment just to give us a change of scenery and see if there's any sign of any of the cubs, because at least we can see the entrance to the den south. I'm going to take my jacket off quickly while I'm here. Douglas, do I think that their actions were a way to reduce the number of members of the clan because of the drought and therefore competition for resources? That's an intelligent question, because hyenas do that. So clans do have internal conflicts, which then result in splits. And it depends on the environment that you're in, the ecosystem that you're in. For example, desert versus this low-veld bushveld that we're in. However, I don't necessarily think it would be in response to the drought in this instance, because the drought's actually working considerably to their advantage. So hyenas, for the most part, are quite good at existing without regular access to water, and their prey concentration has become much more concentrated, actually, around waterholes. That and the fact that the lions are actually, I've mentioned before that the lions on Buffelshoek, both the Nkuhumas and the Talamati prides, have been killing buffalo basically every 3 days, because the buffalo have to wander through for access to water there. So I don't know. I don't think it's a way of reducing clan members. She could potentially be kicked out, and she might move off on her own. That's how new clans start. That is the way that it plays out. But I don't know any more than that. I mean, it's a possibility. It's as plausible as the other scenarios that I've come up with. The action appears to have died down at the den site, so I'm going to send you back over to Steph, and we will catch up with you in a moment.
And I know that I've dragged you away from all the excitement around that hyena den. I just want to show you this amazing tree. Tibbs is showing you now, it looks like a dead tree stump, something that is very common over here. In actual fact, this tree is not dead at all, it is growing, and that is a very typical growth form of this particular tree, the bushveld resin tree. If I can ask Tibbs to tighten up on those leaves again. One of the defining characteristics is the herringbone venation, that's that parallel veins that you see on the leaf of the bushveld resin tree, and the very densely hairy leaves. They've got incredibly velvety leaves, and this tree makes the most wonderful homes for bush babies, lizards, a very popular home for the girdled lizard, my favorite lizard. You quite often find them in here, and for bush babies, the little nocturnal primates that you have. But there's a bit of a dark side as well. My very first tracker, a guy called Richard Ndubani, and one of my best friends of all time, used to make bird lime from this tree. What bird lime is a very sticky substance that you use to catch birds. And what he used to do is, when he was tending his father's cattle, there wasn't always a lot of protein going on at the house, and the herd guys used to have to make do with what they could get out of the bush. And what he used to do is he used to come and tap the sap out of this tree. You make a small incision in the bark, and this milky fluid comes out. He then used to slow cook the sap over a period of a few hours, and what it does is it turns this milky sap into this very tacky, almost like well-chewed chewing gum, if I could give you an example, like a press stick almost. And then he used to wrap this tacky substance around a stick and go and place a stick at a watering point, at a pan. And any bird that landed on the stick got itself all covered in this tacky substance, and then he'd come and harvest his birds and then cook them up in a stew for lunch. Now, while that's unnecessary for us to do nowadays, in a place like he grew up, where it was quite rough to find enough protein to feed oneself during a day, he used to make do. And you know, he died an old man a couple of years ago, and although he had no teeth in his mouth, that had nothing to do with his bird lime project, and had everything to do with his infatuation with sweets. And that's the bushveld resin tree, one of the very few that I've found here on Djuma. They're fairly common further south of here, but I haven't found one here. This one's right next to the road, and I wanted to share it with you. And that's that for the bushveld resin tree. What has been amazing is, during the time that you've been looking with the hyena, is the fact that it's clouded over. Clouds are fairly high. It's actually cooled down. And I think it's actually colder than it was this morning. Now, we are going to link back to Jamie. The hyenas are still busy at it.
After all of that intense action, it's actually quite a relief to return to a relatively peaceful den site. And I wonder if June feels the same way. Come to have a rest at the entrance to the den. And I wonder what this little sub-adult... mischief. Why did you put your head straight behind the tree? I wonder what this little cub learned from all of that. What was going on in its head when that action happened? What was it learning? Well, certainly don't put a foot out of place in this clan was probably top of the list. And now it's bedtime, just like that. On from savage creatures attacking each other, and I use that tentatively. I mean, in this mind space that they were in. Hyenas are not savage creatures any more than anything else is out here. It is a very important lesson to remind yourself that they are wild animals. And as for this one, I have no idea what her story is. But whatever was happening there, and it's one of the big reasons why you don't interfere, is you have no idea if it is for the good of the clan or not. And most likely, the fact that it involved high-ranking females protecting a den site, it probably was. We just don't know why. Thank you, Chris Rogue. I think you're right. I think Chris Rogue may well be right. I suspect that this attacker is the matriarch, and Chris Rogue is telling me that it's Bella's mom. Bella, for those of you unfamiliar, was the oldest cub when I first started working here in July last year at the Philemon's Cutline Den. We see Bella occasionally moving about, and interestingly, Bella, the cub of this hyena, has been the one that we saw, that sub-adult following the attacked hyena in Scott's sighting. So Bella's mother was the attacker in that sighting as well, apparently. Chris Rogue, I think I agree with you. That is, to me, the strongest theory. I suspected that this one was the matriarch, just watching her behavior as she entered into this dead site. And I know that we've mentioned before that June's mother might be the matriarch, but I was starting to doubt that over the last few weeks, having watched the clan interactions. I wasn't quite ready to throw forward any theories until we'd seen something conclusive. My suspicion is that this is fairly conclusive. Now, the question is, how does this hyena relate to Corky? I think it's fascinating, however, to figure this out. And if it is Bella's mom, Bella, for new viewers, is just over a year old. That would mean that Bella's mom could also be due to have cubs fairly soon. And I think, I hesitate to be the initiator in this, but I think she needs a name, this individual, because of all the strong characters we have met at this den site, she appears to be the strongest. And it might be the easiest way of keeping track and identifying her. I don't want to call her matriarch or something like that, because as we've seen, or as I've mentioned, that can change. Amazing how much you can learn by spending time patiently at hyena dens. Trying to think of all the names that are popping into my head aren't suitable. I'll give it some thought. And of course, you're always more than welcome, as well as our loyal viewers, to also give it some thought as well. I think she needs one. Nice question coming through. We had incredible sounds coming from that attack, and interestingly, what seemed to have broken it, or at least coincided with the break in the tensions when that fight broke up, was the whooping contact call of the attacked hyena. And James Richards, you were wondering if each clan has its own unique contact call. Not to us, not really to us. To us, we hear ooh. Ooh, sorry, hyena. You need to do that quite so loudly. Luckily, there was no reaction there. I don't really want to stir up any more trouble. And the reason that I thought that might stir up trouble is, to us, it sounds the same. To them, it is unique. It is like voices. It's like me shouting versus Brian shouting. I don't know what we're shouting in this imagined scenario. Well, let's imagine it's something fun. But either way, yes, their voices are different to each other. And they recognize, and I'm not saying that necessarily that a clan has a specific unique call, but they recognize each individual's call within their clan. So they'll know as soon as they're foreign voices. It's almost like different accents. in a way. And I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if a clan's calls sound more similar to each other than they do to other individuals in different clans. One thing about hyena dens is they really force you to be specific about what you're trying to say. You could tie yourself in knots talking about them. And you, big girl, what was going through your head through all of this? What was it all about? Protecting the essence of the clan, I guess, in whatever manner that entailed. Marianne has suggested, all the way from Arkansas, that we call her Xena, the matriarch, and the warrior princess. I definitely like that. It works because that is essentially what hyenas are, or females at least. There is that aspect to their personality. My brain's still a little bit frazzled from what happened earlier. Now that it's all calmed down, the adrenaline starts to ebb. And what Brian and I were just discussing, which is something that you guys obviously can't experience, was the smell of that moment. And I'll never ever forget it. It was a combination of hyena, that wet dog musk smell, and then fear. And I swear we can smell fear. We must be able to. Fear and blood. It was one of the most intense smells I have smelt in a long time. And by saying I think we can smell fear, I'm not talking some kind of supernatural extrasensory perception. I mean, quite literally, somewhere in our evolutionary biology, we must have been able to smell increased adrenaline. And obviously, much like with humans, where if you get scared, you start to sweat, your sweat glands start secreting. I think animals do something very similar. They must exude some kind of scent. Because that was a smell that instantly said to me, fear. And that, unfortunately, is something that we can only describe to you in that experience. I think I'm going to leave this hyena den now. We've spent a considerable period of time this morning with them. We've learnt an enormous amount about them, even if some of it is a little bit of guesswork involved. And I think that the action is over now. I think that they are done for the day. Corky's wandered off into the drainage line to find probably somewhere to rest. And the rest of them have dispersed, and only our interesting hyena female remains at the den to guard whatever's happening there. I don't know whether she has cubs or not, but we'll find out in the next few days. It's the wonders of the live safaris. You don't have to go home back to wherever you are at the end of them. You can keep watching. I'm going to leave the den for now, and I'm going to send you back to Steph while I do.
Welcome back after what seems to have been quite an astounding hyena sighting for you. It feels like you've been gone for hours with Jamie. Myself and Tebs have literally just been combing the roads all the way from the gate, basically driving every road very slowly back from there to see if we can pick up any fresh tracks of anything that's been walking around. And I must be honest, I haven't seen a single fresh cat track on any of the roads that we've done today. I'm not too sure why. My only feeling is that it's probably due to the season and the luck that predators seem to have in the dry season, and on top of which there's a lot of babies around at the moment. So they're not having to move very far to find food at all. Although I would have expected with the rain rain that we had yesterday, for at least leopard to be a little bit more proactive in marking their territories. Quite often the rain will wash their marks, their scent marks, off of the trees and the bushes. And you've noticed, if you've watched some leopard in the park, they're very active at walking up to bushes and rubbing their faces on them, and scent marking with urine, even in some places grabbing bushes and hugging bushes to get their scent onto it. I'm hoping that we pick up some or other sign of Karula or Vimvula where we are at the moment. But not really an area where we see Tingana too much. We're on Gallagher Road. Watch out here, Tibbs. An elephant has bent this tree over the car, and I have no doubt it's going to shoot back. Here we go. And smack Tibbs in the face. Got to be quite careful with that. Alright, we've got what sounds like an eastern scimitar bull here. Okay, so we've got the scimitar bull at the top of this tree, I think. And see if we can get you its call. There we go. Just as we got it flew off, but at least you get to see it. That was the eastern scimitar bull, for those of you who are keeping bird lists. And what's quite interesting for me about that bird is not only does it have that heavily recurved scimitar-like bill, which it uses to probe holes in wood of trees to get insects and grubs out of the trees, but it sleeps vertically. Most birds you'd think would sleep on a horizontal plane or in a nest. These birds perch, very similar to swifts. They perch against the tree, usually when elephants pulled a piece of branch off. They perch against the tree and they sleep vertically, tail down, head up, perched close onto the tree. And quite often, well, I found them at least perched like that quite often. You just got to know where to look. And at night time with a spotlight, they're the easiest to find at night time. But eastern scimitar bull, not as gregarious as the red-billed or green woodhoopoo. These you usually only find singularly and in pairs. Now there we've got two male violet-backed starlings. Let's see if Tibbs can get it before they fly away. And there we've got a beautiful look. There we go. Tibbs just got that violet back starling. Don't forget about updating your bird list. That's a male violet back starling. And in contrast to those wattled starling that we saw a little bit earlier today, you can see that the starlings definitely have some of the most striking colors. That violet metallic color that starling had, contrasted to the white chest. One male just flew off a little bit into the bush. Virtually impossible to get. He's standing on a branch there now. Let's see if we can get one last. Here, he might come out there for you. There's both of them are flitting around over there, obviously vying for the attention of a lady. That's the only reason why you'd find two males together like that. There you go, just next to the tree. Just to the left of the... There we go, onto the... And that characteristic flick of the wing that is characteristic of of starlings in general, and I've seen it on some shrikes as well, but that characteristic of flicking that wing like that is just to flash the color off of that wing. The wings are iridescent, and when he flashes his wing like this, it's to flash that color that he's got, mainly in sunlight. We've got too much sunlight over here. For those of you just joining us or new to the show, the violet-backed starling come all the way to us when the equatorial forests that they live in Central Africa experience their deluge, which is around about now from Christmas time to March, and it's better or more energy efficient for them to come down here and feed on insects and have their babies here than it is to stay in the rainforest and try and stay warm and basically try and find food when it's busy raining meters upon meters of rain. So totally clouded up, which is quite nice. I must say I'm enjoying the overcast weather that we are having. I just want to have a look and see if these weaver nests are active. An observation James made just the other day was that the weavers started to build their nest, and on very many places where normally you'd expect bunches of weavers to be, the weavers have actually stopped building nests and have moved on. The two different weavers here, we have got what looks like spectacled weavers, or the remnants of the spectacled weavers. That's the two light-colored nests. And then the scraggly, messy, dark nest that you see at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, that is the nest of a red-headed weaver. Of all the weavers, them and well, they're actually my favorite. And they're only my favorite because they have the most striking red head on top of a pale body. Let's see if I can find one in a bird book for you, so I can show you the two birds that have made those nests while we wait to see if they're actually in attendance. So this here is the red-headed weaver. You can see why I like him so much. A beautifully colored bird. Red-headed weaver. We'll go back to the nest and I'll show you which is their one now. It's a very messy, scraggly nest with a long entrance tube. And then the other nest is the spectacled weaver. That's this one. Also another striking bird. My two favorite weavers. Spectacled weaver and red-headed weaver. Let's go back to their nests. I'll show you once again how these birds just build this most amazing thing with apparently no intelligence whatsoever. They've managed to construct these beautiful nests. The one at the bottom, center of your screen, right at the bottom, dark brown, almost camouflaged. That's the red-headed weaver's nest, and then the one above it, or the two above it at least, the spectacled. The males are the ones that build the nest. The females play no part in the nest building. They play a huge part in nest destruction though. If the female doesn't enjoy the nest, she pulls it to pieces and the male starts to rebuild all over again. And in the case of the masked weavers, a male has been known to build up to 50 nests, 50 nests in a season before the lady is trying to impress is happy enough to lay her eggs in it. And the reason why they build such elaborate nests is that nesting sites, or prime nesting sites, safe nesting sites, are incredibly difficult to find. They're hot property. Generally speaking, only a few birds can actually build nests that are safe. Very many birds keep their nests on the ground or build scraggly, twiggy nests where wind wind blows their babies out quite often. But the weavers and the woodpeckers are definitely, and the barbets are definitely birds that can excavate their own nests or build their own nests, and very safe, well-protected nests from the sun, from the heat, exposure, wind, predators, you name it. For the rest, they have to fight it out amongst themselves for the leftover nests from woodpeckers and whatnot. James Taylor just asked on the topic of birds. Good morning, James. Do we get flamingos here? Pink flamingos. But flamingos turn pink when they eat a specific, or part of their diet is inclusive of I'm not too sure what compound it is actually, but they turn from a whitish color, light pinkish color, to that pink that we so often see in pictures, only when their diet contains the compound that they need. And then we get the lesser flamingo here, which is the more common of the two. The lesser, you get the lesser and the greater, with the lesser flamingo here, the algae feeding flamingo, being the more common. And although I have heard reports of flamingos being seen in the Kruger National Park, they're not that common. The first place that you really get flamingos here in any great numbers would be the Mekharikari Pans in southern Botswana. There you can see up to 2 million birds nesting on their distinctive clay domed nests. So not too far away from here. Within a day's drive you can be at the Mekharikari Pans from here. I've got a pesky fly on Nemesis that I've picked up here from one of the bushes. I hope that answered your question about the flamingo. So while they're not uncommon to be seen in the Kruger National Park, definitely the first breeding places that you get of them in any great numbers would be in the Mekharikari Pans, southern Botswana. Some of the largest salt flats in the world. Jimmy's asked a nice personal question. Do I prefer walking or driving? To me, they're two so different from one another. I'm naturally very curious, and so walking for me definitely unlocks a few more options for me, in that I get to stick my face into any number of different nooks and crannies out here. Walk drainage lines you can't drive next to, but of course seeing spectacles on foot is a much more difficult thing to do. I think it all depends. You know, if you do too much walking, you miss driving and you miss being in close proximity to leopard and to lion, and being in amongst elephant herds that don't really bother you too much. But walking definitely gives you a new perspective. You feel plugged in, you feel more alive, you feel more part of the system here. So I think it just depends on my mood really, much more than anything else. Too much of any one thing and I start getting bored and frustrated. So we're still on. Back onto our question with the weavers. Leslie has asked, how long does it take those weavers to build their nest? It takes them a couple of days, Leslie. They'll get the majority of it done in a day or two, maybe 3 days. So it doesn't take too long. They actually build it incredibly quick. They're very industrious birds. But it's still 2 to 3 days before they got anything that remotely resembles a nest, and they'll constantly be doing maintenance on their nest, taking out this piece of grass, replacing it, putting another weave on this and that and the next thing. They hardly ever sit still, these weavers. I must be honest, they could teach a few people a lesson or two in how to stay busy. While I'm not concentrating on where we're driving. are still the way from Mississippi. Pam, not that I can recall, the closest orange weaver that we get would be one of the two weavers whose nests we've just seen. The red-headed weaver has got an orangey tinge to his red head, and the spectacled weaver has also an orangey tinge to their feathers, but not orange. Not that I can remember, no. And here we have some zebra. So finally we have something with a heartbeat to show you. Some plain zebra. One very pregnant mom. Gee whiz. Oh, look at that massive belly. A zebra, as opposed to a wildebeest, for lack of a better example, are what are called hindgut fermenters. They have a digestive system that doesn't have a rumen, they don't chew the cud. Other animals here that have that would be white rhinoceros, hippopotamus, warthog, and elephant are all hindgut fermenters. What it does allow them to do is eat a massive variety of different grade grasses. They are not like ruminants who need a very high protein diet in terms of the grasses, a very specialized diet. The zebra can eat almost any type of grass. Kirsty has just let me know that Jamie showed you this pregnant zebra the other day. And while it's not uncommon for them to have twins, it's usually they just have one baby. Pregnant for, as far as I know, roughly 16 months. And the baby is born precocial, in other words, with the ability to definitely get up and get going very quickly after birth. But talking about that, let's quickly cross over to Jamie. She's got a vulture that she wants to show you, and hopefully doesn't fly away. And we'll wait here with these zebra for you.
For me, there is something hugely iconic about the silhouette of a vulture sitting on top of a dead tree and surveying the land beneath it. And this white-backed vulture is providing us with a very picturesque scene. And you see, in this type of weather, with the clouds the way that they are, you see lots of vultures almost grounded. Now, it can still fly, but for the most part, they rely on the hot air currents coming off the earth to thermal around and to spot carcasses to scavenge off. At the moment, he can't do that because there aren't any thermals. So although he could fly up, it would not be the most energy efficient way of doing so. So essentially, when they hit a hot air current and a thermal, all they've got to do is open their wings and let the air currents carry them and ride them. Whereas at the moment, to fly, he'd have to flap his wings to lift a considerable bulk off that tree and into the skies. I can do it. Have a bit of a ruffle of the feathers there. At the moment, I think he's just keeping his incredible sharp gaze, looking around for any other birds that might have discovered thermals or possibly might even have discovered a kill site. And the reason we haven't seen that many vultures recently on these live safaris is because, as I mentioned, the Talamati pride as well as the Guma pride have been spending a lot of time on Buffelshoek, and they've been taking down a buffalo once every 3 days. So most of the vultures are clustered around that area and around where the Birmingham boys have been. Once one vulture spots another, it's a sort of a chain reaction that then leads to more of them circling around and finding that kill. And then they just retire to the treetops in the evenings close to where their meal has been. But they will also be an animal, much like our spotted hyena friends, that thrives in these drought conditions. The only big caveat to that is the spread of anthrax. Now, we've spoken a lot about the vulture's incredible immune system, but they can be, at this time of year, they can be vectors of disease. So what a vulture will do as soon as it's eaten off a carcass is it will go and have a bath in a dam or a river and wash away all of those particles, and that does, in its own way, contribute to the spread of anthrax. That being said, it's all part of a natural process. So anthrax is a naturally occurring disease, and it spreads naturally in populations. Oh, it's getting mobbed there by what look like starlings. One of the braver birds, or is that a drongo? No, I think it's a starling. No, it's a starling. Drongos and starlings are usually the main aggressors, and sometimes lilac-breasted rollers. I'm fairly certain that the starlings had a nest there at one point. Now, the vulture's not really a threat to their chicks. They're not often, I would say it's highly unlikely that it's going to go and raid their nests. They are raptors, though. They are birds of prey, and I think that starlings don't really distinguish between the different raptor species. Although if that were a harrier hawk or a gymnogene, they would be far fiercer in their attack of him. It was almost a half-hearted mobbing attempt compared to some of the ones we've seen. Judy? You were asking if a Virtual's cuckoo was calling in the background. Let's just sit and listen for a moment. Yes, Judy, well done. How do I know that it's a Virtual's cuckoo? Because I can see it. Unfortunately, it's going to be very difficult for us to be able to show you, but let us try. It is sitting. This is going to be tricky for Brian. It's right behind a log. Well done, Judy. Very well done. I'm fairly certain that's it hiding over there. So there's a fallen tree that's growing slightly horizontally, and it's tucked away in the bush behind that. I'll direct Brian as we go. That horizontal, have you got it there, Brian? Well done. Thank you. There. Well done. That, I'm fairly certain, is the tail of a Virtual's cuckoo. I think. Hard to tell. It could turn out to be a grey go-away bird. But I think that is what you were hearing, that coo-coo-coo-coo-coo-coo-coo-coo sound. And for those of you listening to the other bird calls, that call, black-crowned chagra. Also calling is the brown-crowned chagra. That makes the call that goes. There's drongos calling, quite sharp calls. There's a crested barbet trilling. The orange-breasted bushshrike. And as always, our ever-present hornbills digging through dung and having a wonderful time doing it. Red-billed hornbill there. Lots of bird calls happening. Oxpeckers, weavers, I can hear. What else can I hear? All kinds of birds calling throughout. I love sitting and just listening to the various bird calls. And after the rain, as we've mentioned before, Gerda mentioned it yesterday, that it's this, they all sound very happy, and they are happy. And immediately after the rain, we saw more bursts in population in terms of insect species. So for the birds, they are having an absolutely wonderful time. There's another one calling. That is a chin spot battus. I can hear a hoopoe calling. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Awesome. Lots and lots of bird life occurring around here. and my lips are no longer as chapped as they were, so my whistles no longer sound like pathetic puffs of air. Viewers who missed it, I've been attempting to imitate bird calls over the last few days, and I don't quite have Brian's level of skill in that respect. Brian's far better at it than I am. But I was even worse than usual because my lips were all dry. I'm trying to just get a view of the Birchall's kukul as we go around the corner. Let's see if we can spot it here. It's very much... oh, no, I was wrong. Sorry, Judy. My mistake. I thought I saw it fluttering, but I have been fooled. And as you know, I would never lie to you, so I'll be honest about it. It's a grey go-away bird that was hiding behind that tree. It is not a Birchall's kukul. But you never know, Judy. It may well have been a Birchall's kukul that we heard calling. You can hear a hoopoe as well. Whoop, whoop. Oh, well. You win some, you lose some, I guess. Okie dokie. I'm going to carry on. I'm going to send you back across to Steph, who is still with his zebra.
So unlike almost any of the other hoofed animals that we found out here, zebra are supremely able to move very quickly from one grazing area to another and eat a large volume of the food available in that particular area very quickly, which means that they can utilize flushes of growth that come out. Now, unlike ruminants who have to stick around in that area for a long time, which obviously attracts attention, zebra can move into an area, eat all the grass that they need to in that particular area, and move off before their presence gets known by lion. And in this area, it's actually quite a useful strategy. Lion only take about 14% of the zebra population out here in the Kruger National Park. 14%. Other areas in Africa, it's very different. Up to 80% of the food eaten by hyena can be that of zebra, but here it only accounts for 14%. Probably buffalo, knowing the line that I do here. Have a look at that zebra. Now, according to the book that I was just reading about zebra, all the horses in Africa reached their peak about 25 million years ago, and even though there's 3 different species of zebra or 3 different subspecies of zebra in South Africa, they are the vestigials of populations that were at their absolute peak about 25 million years ago. Quite interesting to think, it's such a highly evolved animal has battled in the face of all the increasing speciation amongst ruminants, and that's exactly where the most of their pressure came from, is that ruminants, which include wildebeest, impala, and giraffe, for instance, are out competing them. Much speculation, of course, as to why they have stripes. I like to believe that rather than some massively involved system of anything, that it just looks nice. And striped partners were more favorable than plain partners, where and when possible. And that's why the zebra are stripy today rather than not stripy. Horses in general, or asses or equids in general across the world, are not striped. And that's because most of them live in quite harsh environments which necessitate a shaggier coat. And when you've got shaggier coats, you can't have the crisp, clean lines that you have with a short coat. But here you can, or in Africa you can, at least all the way up to the equator. And so we have striped horses here. Nice, easy answer. And what we're looking there at is the herd stallion. Generally, herd sizes here are 1 stallion to a couple of females, usually 4, 5, up to 10 females. Males will aggressively defend their harem of females against other intruders and will kick and bite at one another furiously. Why that zebra is walking in the branch over there is that the leaves of that combretum has offered some protection to the grasses that are growing under it. I'm just going to go forward a little bit just so we can get into the clearing. So we got a better view of them eating. Now, those zebra are able to eat coarse grass and a lot of it, much better than anything else. They'll eat almost any grass that they come across, not only the coarse grasses. And they'd prefer to eat the better tasting grasses. And the better tasting grasses in the Sabi Sands almost all occur in shade. And that's exactly what that zebra is going after at the moment. It's going after the grasses growing in the shade of the trees, grasses that haven't been burned to an absolute crisp by the drought that we've been having over the last couple of weeks. Or this year, I should say, not even the last couple of weeks. This is a dry year. And will continue to be a dry year. I think we've almost run out of time to fill up the subterranean water reserves for this year. Our rain is generally from the end of December all the way to the beginning of March. Not a very big window. We're in the first week or two of it at the moment. We're hoping, holding thumbs, that it ends up being a little bit closer to our average, which is between 400 and 600 mils of rain per year. About 1.5 feet. Exactly, Jim. You've just made a comment that the zebra shouldn't be as affected by the drought, and you're 100% right. That they are more drought resistant than many other animals. In actual fact, the most drought resistant animal that I know of belongs to the equids, and that's the common donkey, the donkey that we are all so used to seeing. They are some of the most drought resistant animals on the face of the planet. So absolutely, Jim, good observation there. They will absolutely be more drought resistant than what the ruminants are. Ruminants are finding it tough at the moment, where zebra are able to crop right almost down to the root level and almost all the way up into the inflorescence of grasses and be able to digest patches of grass relatively quickly, making the most of anything that does come up and flush around little rainstorms like we had yesterday. There will be a flush. They'll be able to utilize that flush to maximum regard, whereas ruminants are hampered by the speed of their digestive processes. And before the sun burns away that flush, we just got a message through from Sharon. I can't remember the first part of your Twitter handle there, Sharon. It didn't come through that clearly on the radio, but you've mentioned through to us that the embryo in a zebra starts off black and then starts getting stripes as it develops further. So it would seem that it is a black horse with some white stripes on. I think that's what you were trying to get to, which is fine. And awesome, because there is a debate as to whether a zebra is black with white stripes or white with black stripes. I always thought it was the other way around, because if you have a look on the inside of their legs, they're almost all white. The black stripes start gradually from their legs and from their bellies and then move into solid, very crisp lines onto their flanks and across their backs. But if they're embryonics, or embryos I should say, and not embryonics, if the embryos are black and later develop the white stripes, then a black horse with white stripes it is. The these zebra, I don't know if these zebra are going to end up at Gallagher Pan. They can actually walk the most unbelievable distances to get to water. Remember when I was working on the other side of the Kruger National Park, it was common for zebra to walk up to 60 kilometers in one day to go and visit water and then go back to their feeding grounds. 30 kilometers from where we were seeing zebra in the morning, they'd all of a sudden arrive at a dam in the afternoon. And then you'd find them back feeding again there by sunset, 30 kilometers away. So they're able to cover massive distances. This little foal is busy giving himself a nice scratch on this fallen down tree. It did seem like they, like me, are a magnet for parasites. Ticks and flies in particular. Having a good scratch there just gets rid of all of them. Now up 5,000 miles away on the plains of the Serengeti, obviously being right on the equator, or just 5 degrees off of the equator, they have a lot of direct sunlight throughout the year. The temperature is also moderate and very warm. They have a lot of rain there, and because of geological history, there is lots of very fertile volcanic soils there and very few hills. And all of those factors together make the circumstance available for large numbers of zebra to accumulate. And on the plains of the Serengeti, you can get up to 1 million zebra, 1 million zebra that walk in a rough circle from the Serengeti into the Masai Mara, and then from the Masai Mara back into the Serengeti on a year-long track that's probably around about 1,000 miles long. Part of the big migration. Them and wildebeest are famous for it. You would see many documentaries on the Great Migration in Tanzania and Kenya. Doesn't happen here in the Kruger National Park. Herd sizes are not that big here because we have hills which break up herds and fragment herds, obviously different zones. We've got a lot more tree cover here which covers the grass. We don't have direct sunlight all year round because we are below the Tropic of Capricorn, and we don't have that much rain either. So all of those factors that we don't have make for quite fragmented zebra herds, and we don't get these large numbers of zebra that occur. Now the stallion has decided he's going to have a scratch. Just going to reverse a little bit so that we can get to see him having his scratch there on the tree. Looks like it's the exact height for him to get right up onto his back. Having a good time. It's gonna get right in there, it looks like. There we go. Finished his scratch. Now time for the other side. Round about his neck. You can see elephants push down one of these combretums and it's created a branch with a particular bend to it that he's just utilizing over there to scratch his mane. They are favored by, there he goes, that's finished. They are favored by oxpeckers. You do find oxpeckers absolutely on zebra. He's decided to move off, and I think it's a good time for us to carry on going and seeing what we can find. Today, large mammals and I have been avoiding one another. It's just my karma for today. And hopefully broke my bit of a mammal drought, seeing that zebra. And I think while myself and Tebs carry on the Buffels of Cut line, it would be a good idea to send you through to Jane.
On the kudu search again, driving the drainage lines of Inyala Road South and Vulture's Nest Road. No sign of them though. I think they're all hiding out in the thick vegetation. Now, I've mentioned that I'm searching for them over and over, and when I see them I'm fairly certain it's the same group that I'm seeing. And it's what we've learned from that, or what I've personally learned from that, and what you can take away as well, is that kudu, I don't know if it's a pregnancy thing, but kudu actually move in relatively small circles, at least at this time of year. I'm not sure if it's because all of them are so pregnant. I haven't seen them at the moment, but I've seen their tracks all over the road. So they are around. And incidentally, as I've been doing that, I've been observing the Inyala herd that is around these drainage lines. And I'm fairly certain as well, just by the fact that you've got the same number of individuals, the same sort of dynamics of sub-adults, adults, those combinations, they work in a very similar way to the kudu. Something that we get familiar with, hello Inyala, thank you for popping up at that point. Something that we get familiar with around camps. You see the same Inyala around camps for years, but you don't really think of in terms of the bigger scale of things. I don't know, it's just something interesting that I've learned that I thought I'd share with all of you. The same applies for this little group of Inyala. Hello girls, I think we saw you yesterday afternoon where we desperately tried to show the viewers one of the little ones dashing about, and you weren't very cooperative then. Yeah, I think that's the little one that was dashing about. They were hiding behind the bushes yesterday. They've been a bit more cooperative now, but they are entirely reliant on moving through this thick vegetation. They're mostly reliant on their, there you go, you did it again, playful little things. So as I said, reliant on more on their hearing and their sense of smell in this dense vegetation. And on the subject of that was such a joyful, that was pure joy, that little skip. It's playing. Inyala do that. We've seen the baby wildebeest do it as well. And of course, important within that play behavior is the coordination and the skills that they learn. I was on a different subject tack before I got distracted by this Inyala fooling around and being a goof. It is big a goof. Silly thing. Yes, animal senses. Back to Sandblaster's question. So Sandblaster, you've heard that animals, or that determined not to let me answer this question. Sorry, Sandblaster, I'll be with you in a moment. He's skipping around like a mad thing. Rejoicing in the rain. Look at it go. It's like it's running a little obstacle course. Yay! I think if I could move like an Inyala, I would as well. I'd also do this. Barrel about. Testing the dexterity of my legs. Whee! Running circuits. Maybe this is the new fitness, the new craze. They're losing all of their festive season weight. And back up the same path. Under the weeping wattle. Back around. Are you going to go back through the drainage line? Nope. Oh, you cut the corner that time. And back under the weeping wattle. Back around. Oh, getting tired now. Oh, done. I quite appreciate the other nyala that just ignore it. Back in the opposite direction. Down into the drainage line. Up the drainage line. And back around. And under the weeping wattle. And skipping around that way. I'm getting tired just looking at it. And back into the drainage line. Oof, you're going to slip. You're going to fall down, little one. Under the weeping wattle. And hopping over the log. It's like a show jumper. All the other nyala are just watching the goings on. Oof, you tired yet? Or are you going to go the other way around? Nope, just dizzy. Changing direction. Silly thing. Yep. Must be an exercise regime. The adults looking on sedately and walking with dignity. I love watching young antelope do that. It's not even a baby, really. I mean, it's a sub-adult female that's dashing about like a maniac. Full of the joys. Just like the birds. Oh. Is it time to feed yet? Breakfast yet? No? Yep, breakfast. Full of joy, just like all of the birds that are calling, which finally brings me back to Sandblaster's question. Now that our nyala has calmed down and started behaving like a rational nyala. Sandblaster, you've heard that birds' eyesight is better than humans, and you were wondering what animal in the bush has the best eyesight out of all of them. Birds are high up on the list. Something like a vulture, they have incredible binocular vision, or the birds of prey that hover around, things like falcons, their eyesight is incredibly good. Even the doves and the pigeons see, and I was discussing this with Vian yesterday, we were trying to work out if they almost see in slow motion, because it's like us seeing a faster frame rate in the way that they process the things that they see. Can't remember the exact terminology, but they essentially see in double speed, if that makes sense. And I wonder whether everything looks slower or faster to them. Either way, they see in a greater amount of detail than we do. It's something that considerable studies have been researched into. So I would say that in terms of their eyesight, that's fairly top of the list. Other animals that might have very good eyesight, something like a boomslang, the snakes that hunt in trees. In its own way, a chameleon as well for spotting movement. Then certain insects which have eyesight in an interesting way because they see different spectrums of light. Now what are you doing? Why are you headbutting everybody? Loopy, I tell you. Completely nuts. Yay, I like that idea. So these nyala have been much more cooperative than they were yesterday. And Pam has suggested that the little one is putting on a show for the camera. He or she. I'm going to hazard a guess, judging by the headbutts, that it's a he. Just a very young he who hasn't quite got its horns yet. Although I've seen females headbutt each other before. They exhibit the same behaviors. Interesting to watch, though. Really interesting to watch. I like that, though. Show for the camera. And they're all showing signs of being a little bit joyful. Here's our little troublemaker. Oh, no. Look at this. Females playing. They're all playing now. I thought it was a male. I think I'm wrong. Sorry. I retract that statement. I think it's females playing. I've seen them do this before in gardens where they start to headbutt each other gently like males do. And then they're sparring. They've all started now. Hornbills, you're making a noise wherever you are. And who knew Nyala could be so full of fun and high-spirited? And if you look a little bit to the left, there's a youngster that looks a little bit confused by all of this. Sort of standing, it's much smaller than the others. Oh, but there's chaos now. That's the little one that I was talking about. Oh, no, it's joining in. Joining in. A little bit of a hop, skip, and a jump. Possibly trying to duck out of the way of the others. What are you doing, you crazy creatures? And it's really nice to just watch them having fun. And that is what they're doing. They're having fun. They're playing. I'm sure you can hear the hornbills. I can't see them from my perspective. Oh, they've flown away. They were right over our heads. I was a little bit worried about the danger of them dropping some kind of bomb on my head, or Brian's, in the form of defecating on us. Happened to me before. Also, within that play that they're doing where they're headbutting each other, there's also a little bit of rubbing their pre-orbital glands on each other as well. Awesome sighting. It's been one of the most enjoyable Nyala sightings I've had, actually. I've seen them do this in gardens before. I don't think I've seen them do it in the wild. Not to this degree, not where the whole group of them joins in. They are moving off though. I think playtime's over and the business of serious eating has started. Very cool. There are all kinds of special moments in the bush if you stop and watch for an extended period of time. You see all kinds of wonderful things. Don't think we're going to get another view of them. The road curves away from them, and as we've mentioned quite a few times, we're not off-roading because of the drought situation. We're not really moving off-road unless absolutely necessary, only for high-profile animals. So unfortunately, as much fun as that Nyala sighting was, I don't think they count. I know they don't count. Still hugely entertaining to sit and watch. Now, as we come up to the end of our sunrise safari, I wanted to just have quite a serious chat after that hyena sighting that we had. And I want to just chat to all of you because, especially for new viewers, bear in mind, and I'm not, before I say this, there's a caveat to this, I'm not saying don't name the animals. I think it's wonderful that we name them. I think we learn far more about them through naming them. But I want to put out a little bit of a warning and say, when you name them, and it's something that I've learned as well, you do form a serious attachment to them. And I know our regular viewers will be very familiar with this. I'm not saying it's not a good thing to name them. I'm not at all. I'm saying that bear in mind that in 2 years' time, when you're still watching Safari Live, a hyena sighting like the one that we had today, that could have been November that was being attacked. And at that point, regular viewers will know that wonderful things happen. We get to share in the lives of these incredible animals, and we see the most beautiful and magical things. But with it comes sightings like the one that we had this morning, which was incredibly difficult to watch. So I'm putting that as a bit of just a warning that you have to take the good with the bad out here. And sometimes bad and sad things do happen. It's the wild. And the joy of the live safari is that we can't script anything, we can't edit anything. We can only tell you the stories and show you the stories as we see them and as they happen. And that comes with the most amazing possibilities. And you get to see cubs growing up with their mothers. And of course, our regular viewers know that occasionally that also comes with a side of heartbreak out here. It's the way that the wild works. You've got to take the good with the bad. And I just wanted, I'm not being patronizing, I promise. I'm just putting that out there, especially for new viewers who are joining us and getting to know, for example, spending as much time as we have over the last few weeks with that hyena den, that there will be sad times within the live safaris. There will also be magical times that you come away from feeling absolutely incredible. And I'm saying this now because I've spent years in the bush, Brian has spent years in the bush, and for both of us, that sighting that we had this morning was one of the most intense sightings we've had. And it was something that was incredibly difficult to witness and incredibly sad to see. I just wanted to put that out there. And of course, as human beings, we get very emotionally attached. And both Brian and myself felt every moment of that sighting. It was both incredible and heartbreaking to witness. I'm looking forward to all of the magical moments that our live safaris have to offer. Some wonderful time spent with incredible animals. I'm going to say a big thank you to Brian for all of his fantastic camera work, as well as the fact that he put up with the rocking of the car in that sighting. It was intense. Thank you to the ladies in FC, and thank you to all of you, the viewers, for joining us and experiencing these incredible moments. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. I'm going to send you back across to Steph for the last minute. Cheers, guys.
In the last closing moments of the show, we thought that we'd go and show you the woodland kingfisher that's just flown out of the nest in the tree that's just next up. They are whole nesting birds, and we thought that we'd close on that for you. And myself and Tebs have had a fantastic day. Beautiful sunrise this morning, the feelings of which are still persisting. And on that note, I just want to say thank you to all of you for all your fantastic questions, and we'll catch you again on the Sunset Safari.